Hi, I'm Harsha. You're here at Oorna farm. I'm a sculptor, artist, and I built this sculpture studio in a farm away from the city near Hyderabad. And we practice permaculture here. And the idea is to live away from the city, near a village, and be in an environment where it's serene and have some solitude to work in peace. I would like to show a glimpse of my studio where I work to create my sculptures. So I started this year back, just after the first lockdown. And the walls of the studio are actually earth walls. We'll see them in a bit. And you can see some of the sculptures being made at this point. There's a lot of prototypes, smaller ones. And the idea behind building a studio like this is, for an artist, especially a sculptor, space is the most important aspect, and also certain tools and certain equipment that helps us make these sculptures. So I needed larger space, number one. Number two, to be able to practice, it's important to find inspiration. And for me, deep down, I felt that the most important inspiration is to be able to engage with nature very closely and work with it, not just be inspired by it as a bystander, but be involved in that process of working with nature. So I grow my own food, I make my own tea with the leaves that I find here, like lemongrass, mint. So all these things are smaller details, but I think they make myself complete. And that is what inspires my process of working, or my philosophy as well. You can see I'm now working on a series of works that are dealing with more organic forms that are directly inspired by things that I find in my immediate surroundings, like in the farm. You know, found twigs, found things. So I think one of that example, of course, this is again in progress, but the idea is this is a work that is a direct inspiration from a leaf, curled leaf. You know how the leaf, once it dries, it kind of curls. So the composition came through the experience of mulching my plants in the farm. You know, so you'll see like it's a exponentially growing bunch of leaves that are curling together, and that's one inspiration that I can talk about immediately. But there's other works that I'm still doing. They're still in the making. So I'm just going to show you something that we've built. It's still in the making. It's a tree platform. I'm trying to build a tree house on top of the tree. The site already had a large tree inside, a tamarind tree, and then there's a ladder there, and then there's a small platform where anybody who comes to the farm, including myself, I spend some time there once in a while. A lot of kids actually like to climb up the platform, and eventually maybe there'll be like a small railing and a tree house there. So a lot of interesting things that can happen in a setting like this, which cannot happen maybe in a city. And now we're going towards the farm now. So as we enter the farm, the studio is the first place because that's where most of the larger activity happens. But then you enter into the farm space as we enter. There's a lot of vegetation now because in the monsoon it's beautifully and wonderfully green. And all the grey water that we use goes to all the banana trees and the trees that we've planted. All the grey water is being used, reused, directly goes into the soil. And that's the container home that I've built using old shipping containers. And the walls that are built there are earthen walls. That's what we teach as well. Something that we've learned from elsewhere in other communities in Auroville, in Tamil Nadu, is also to share the knowledge that we have. It's not about we building something, but it's about us having the knowledge and the know-how to build ourselves, whatever it is, small, big. I was inspired by tiny living because for a space like this, in a farm setup, I wanted to minimize living space, the closed space, and open up and have a lot of open space. And the agenda is not to, people like to build a large farmhouse. I think that's not what we were trying to do. We were trying to do the opposite. Have a lot more open green space and then have very little closed space. And shipping containers seemed the right choice. It is very easy, first thing. Number two, it is portable. People have this idea, okay, it doesn't have to be like, say a friend has a site, and then you don't want to buy your own land. You can always ask him or maybe lease it for 10 years. take a shipping container, convert it into a home, stay there, live there for some time, and then eventually you want to move out, you can always carry the container with you. So this is a choice for youngsters, for millennials who think they might not want to have a permanent setup. Number two, with a shipping container, you do not have to create a foundation. You can basically create like a really minimal foundation, like a pile foundation, or even a couple of stones that you can put your container on, and you're free. So then you're not disturbing the land that you're in. So you have a smaller space, like a smaller plot somewhere. It's a beautiful thing to do. The other alternative is, if you have a larger community that can help you build, you can build with earth really cheap. But then it's just that you need to have the time and the resources to find people to help you build. Otherwise, there's multiple opportunities for us to kind of build with other techniques. There's actually earth shape where you can use used tires. So today we had a workshop about natural earth building. The technique that we're really talking about is cob. It's an English word which means ball. And this is a technique that is prevalent across the world. And it's actually more prevalent here in this Telangana region in Hyderabad as well. A lot of village homes are built with this technique. So that walls that we see here are made using the same technique. What we do is we use 4 important ingredients. 1 is soil or clay, 2 is sand, 3 we have straw, and then 4 we have water. All 3 mixed together and kneaded well, just like how you mix a dough, to form these large chunk of batch of clay. And this clay is then made into smaller balls to be passed on to the site wherever the wall is. And then you have somebody who is actually doing the cobbing. That means you're basically mixing the cob to form this monolith wall. And it's a great thermal moss wall. That means it's well insulated. It can keep away from the heat of the sun, and also by the end of the night it can actually keep you warm. So it's a beautifully passive solar design. And these are the smart walls that we should be talking about, not the technologically advanced ones. These are the ones that are really smart. As a human being, we are supposed to learn these very important basic things to build your own shelter, grow your own food, to make us more sensitive as to the effects of our actions. You can hire somebody else to build something, but you don't know the practices that they are following. Whereas when you build it with yourself, you understand the pain, you understand the materials, so you value them more. This is a Cob Oven that we've built in January this year, and this is the most rudimentary, most primitive oven that you can build, but it is the most effective oven that can make great pizzas. It's a great baking tool. It's got all. So the beauty with Cob Oven is, even when it's 600-700 degrees, you can actually touch. It is just lukewarm, and that's the opening of the dome. You basically can put in like a 12-inch pizza inside, and it's got great insulation properties. So at Oorna farm, we thought that we have to follow a principle that is a win-win both for the earth and for us. So in the process of finding different methodologies, we found permaculture to be the most closest and the most design friendly. It became a design tool for us. We didn't know where to start. So when we heard about permaculture, and then we did workshops in Oroville and here in Hyderabad, we realized this is a great tool that can help us nurture the space, recharge soil systems. So that's what we're going to talk about. And then so one of the important things that we started off with was some earthworks to capture as much water as we can, and also stop soil erosion. So this is a swale that we've dug. So we took the contours of the land, and then we've dug this swale to catch as much water. And the last when the heavy rains happened, it was really working beautifully. And then we have dug a small pond here. It's also a water catchment system. It's a large enough pond that can hold as much water, and it also recharges the water table underneath. The other thing that we do here is also multi-cropping. There's actually a lot of diversity right next to each other and also amongst each bed. So there's like blue flower, and there is kasarikai, and there is a soursop tree, all next to each other. And so one feeds to each other, they become companion plants, and also there's mulching, and there's pests do not like when there's certain different plant next to each other, so it kind of helps each other in a beautiful way. In simple language, permaculture is actually permanent agriculture, as simple as that. So in the regular agriculture system that we have, what happens is you have to till every year, and it's a monocropping system. That means you're basically depriving all the minerals that are available in the soil. But whereas in a system like this, with permaculture, with permanent agriculture, that means you would basically zone out the overall farm into different zones, and one of the zone that we have there in the corner is actually a fruit orchard, like an orchard, where that is a zone that you do not disturb, and then you plant all the fruit trees there, and here you have your vegetables here, and then you have nitrogen fixers there. The tall trees that you see are actually Glycidia and Sesbania. They're nitrogen fixers. They have these small nitrogen nodules that fix inside. So you don't have to buy urea and nitrogen fixers and then pour them here. We're also looking at multi-layered cropping. That means you have a ground cover like a turmeric which grows underneath. You have a like a tuber like a potato or something, and then you have a shrub like a cowpea. And then you have a tree, and then you have for the grey water systems you have banana. So it's a vibrant system. So you're always fed, and the goal is to be able to harvest something every day for your own needs, and you're slowly trying to reduce your dependency on the other networks, and then eventually you'll have surplus of because of this kind of system. At this point in time, we're also doing a lot of soil building exercises. That means we are specifically planting some plants that help the soil, and also of course they will help us, but it's primarily good concentration just to kind of regenerate the soil and its properties, and create a lot of ground cover so that it's not exposed to the sun constantly, and then there'll be a lot of soil building through microbial activity, through the fungi, and that is the most important aspect in any farm, and they are the good friends. We also do a lot of foraging. We found locals using a lot of native plants that are not available in their farms but in our farm. The only reason being we do not use any chemicals here. No fertilizer, no chemicals, no pesticide, and that has resulted in us finding these small beautiful leaves that can be cooked. Coming from an arts background and not having anybody in my immediate family or relatives in the farming network was difficult, but also what this opened up to is us learning from a lot of people. We were basically going anywhere that we found an opportunity, going and visiting other farms, going to workshops. So there was a lot of knowledge gaining from the network of not just permaculturists but also organic farmers, in general farmers, asking around, and I think this has helped us to build a good network of people who we can fall back on, and WhatsApp groups that deal with ecological ways of farming, and a lot of YouTube videos, books that we found, and even introduction workshops really helped us to start with immediately. But I think a lot of organic agriculture systems or permaculture systems say one thing importantly, is have patience and be ready to listen to the farm, to the trees, to whatever it is trying to say. It's trying to say it needs water. You look at how you can make that happen. It's saying we have pests. You look at how you can make sure that pests do not come. So you trying to create a dialogue. I think that's what we've learned. Of course, the initial phase was really tough. Where do you start? We were making mistakes, but I think that is the beauty of learning. Some of the trees have started fruiting. Guava also we might have. See the size of that anjeer. The squirrels have already started eating this. You can see. So the other thing with the principle that we follow is fair share. So it is not just us consuming, us harvesting, but it's also the animals and the birds harvesting for themselves. So only when you have a mutual relationship with the animals and the ecosystem that you have, you're basically completing the circle there. And then here is an example of a fig tree, and the fruit being eaten by squirrels probably, or maybe birds as well. You can take a video of that. Or maybe you can take this thing here. This is yam. This is elephant yam. So that's like the big elephant yam you get underneath. This is something that we got from Mysore. And here there's one more. That's peanut butter fruit. This one. This is something we got from Goa. It's just 1.5 years. Actually, 1 year actually. 1.5 years. 1.5. So we have some. This is all tapioca. This is again tuber family tree. Even for me, it took me almost 3 years. Like I said, the first workshop with earth building I did was 2017. Somehow it struck then that I should do something like this, but I was not sure where I was going to build. But I was not sure. The first thing I say is keep collecting the experiences. I was going to different people. I was going to different farms. Wherever I went, whichever city, whichever country, I was always striving to meet those kind of people. I think they rubbed off some of their energy to me, and I eventually will rub off my energy. I would only suggest meet people who are in this kind of wherever they are, wherever you are. Go to workshops, see other farms, see whatever that inspires you in this era, in this genre of living. They will inspire you very, very much. Like Krishna Mackenzie, he's been there in 20 years, his farm, and how he lives away from the city. He grows his own food. Everything that he does, he tries to do it by himself. He basically created time for himself, So he is an inspiration for me. I saw another artist in Australia that was also an inspiration for me. I saw other people who I started following people like that who live away from the city, and then slowly it resonated with me. And then I said, okay, maybe I'll take that step. I waited, but then I took my step whenever it was needed. And it's also not necessary that everybody has to buy a land and then go away from the city. But you can always collaborate with other people who have land. A lot of people have land, but they do not have people who can collaborate with them to be able to do some farming, to be able to build something with natural earth building. First, the name that I gave Oorna farm. Oorna is actually a vermilion of the Buddhahood. It's not direct Buddhahood, but it's actually a symbolism, and that's where the word comes from. And the idea to create some Oorna farm here is to create a community here, not just create a farm where I live, but people who think alike, people who think about alternative ways of living, alternative ways of thinking, education, music, art, whatever they think is sustainable, is alternative. Like say homeschooling, or let's look at music making, let's look at seed saving, let's look at foraging, wild plants, documenting these things, or maybe look at vernacular architecture, or maybe art and architecture. All these things are interesting to me. So I want to create a space where I can have screenings here. I've already gotten all the setup. I'm hoping the third wave passes on, and then I'll have a lot more activity here. I want to host other people who want to have smaller workshops about traveling, about traveling slowly, slow traveling, slow cooking, perhaps wild foods, perhaps camping, anything that is taking you away from the societal capital ideas. I call for other collaborators who can come and collaborate with this space and engage with new things and alternative things.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.